The great hall of the Council of Bonds was cold. Una had always thought it was beautiful before, with its tall white pillars and floors that shone like mirrors. But today, standing in the center of the room, she felt only the cold. It seeped into her bones and wrapped around her heart. She stood alone. Her husband, Velix, stood on the other side of the hall. He did not look at her. He had not looked at her for many months now. Once his eyes had been warm when they found hers. Once he had held her hand and promised her forever. But promises, she learned, meant nothing on Velora Prime. The 5 council members sat on their high seats looking down at her. Their faces showed nothing. They did not care about her pain. They only cared about the law. Velix of House Tauren, the head counselor said, his voice echoing through the hall. You have requested dissolution of your bond. State your reason. Velix finally spoke. His voice was clear and steady, as if he was discussing the weather and not the end of their life together. My bonded partner is hollow. 7 cycles have passed. She has produced no offspring. I wish to bond with a female who can fulfill her duty. Hollow? The word hit Una like a physical blow. She had heard it whispered behind her back for years. She had seen it in the eyes of her mother and sisters. But hearing Velix say it out loud in front of the council, in front of everyone, it broke something inside her. On Velora Prime, a female's worth was measured by one thing only, her ability to bear children. A female who could not conceive was considered defective, broken, hollow. It did not matter if she was kind. It did not matter if she was intelligent or hardworking or loving. Without children, she was nothing. Una had tried everything. She had visited every healer on the planet. She had prayed at every temple. She had followed every old tradition and new treatment. Nothing worked. Her body simply could not do what her society demanded of it. Do you have anything to say? The counselor asked her. Una looked up. What could she say? That she had loved Velix with all her heart. That she had spent countless nights crying alone while he grew more and more distant. That she had apologized 1,000 times for something that was not her fault. No, she said quietly, I have nothing to say. The council did not need time to decide. The dissolution was granted immediately. Velix nodded once, then walked out of the hall without looking back. 7 cycles of marriage, and he walked away as if she had never existed. Una stood there for a long moment after everyone left. The hall was empty now, silent. She looked at the spot where Velix had stood, and she wondered how love could disappear so completely. Had it ever been real, or had she only imagined it? She walked home slowly, but it was not her home anymore. Velix's servants were already packing her belongings when she arrived. They would not meet her eyes. They placed her things in 2 small bags and set them by the door. You must leave before evening, one of them said. Those are the master's orders. Una nodded. She did not argue. What was the point? She went to her family's house next. Her mother answered the door. For one moment, Una saw something like sympathy in her mother's eyes, but then it was gone, replaced by fear. You cannot stay here, her mother said. Your sisters are of bonding age. If people know you are living with us, it will hurt their chances. No male wants a hollow female in his family. Mother, please, Una said. I have nowhere else to go. I am sorry, Una, but you should have tried harder. You should have given him a child. The door closed in her face. Una stood on the street holding her 2 small bags. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of purple and gold. It was beautiful, but she could not feel its beauty. She could only feel the emptiness inside her. She had no husband, she had no family, she had no home. On Velora Prime she had nothing. That night Una slept at the spaceport. She sat on a bench near the departure gates, watching ships come and go. Travelers from dozens of worlds passed by her. Some looked at her with curiosity. Velorian females rarely traveled alone. Most did not notice her at all. As the night grew darker, Una made a decision. She could not stay on Velora Prime. Every face here would remind her of her shame. Every whisper would call her hollow. She needed to go somewhere new, somewhere far away, somewhere she could start again. She used the last of her personal credits to buy a ticket on a cargo freighter. The ship was heading to the outer colonies, to the frontier territories where humans and aliens lived together. She knew almost nothing about humans. Her people considered them strange, emotional, chaotic, unpredictable. But they also said the outer colonies did not care about bloodlines or status. In the frontier, people could become anyone they wanted. Maybe there, she could become someone new. The freighter was old and uncomfortable. Yuna shared a small cabin with cargo containers and the smell of engine fuel. The journey took 23 days. She spent most of it alone, eating simple rations and staring out the small window at the stars. Sometimes she dreamed of Velix. In her dreams, he was the man she had first married, kind, attentive, full of promises. But then she would wake up, and she would remember the cold look in his eyes as he called her hollow. On the last day of the journey, the captain announced their destination, New Busan Colony. Yuna looked out the window and saw a planet covered in blue oceans and green land. It looked nothing like Velora Prime. It looked alive in a different way, messy, colorful, wild. As the ship descended through the atmosphere, Yuna pressed her hand against the window. She did not know what waited for her down there. She did not know if she would find work or shelter or kindness. She only knew that she could not go back. She carried 2 small bags and a heart full of cracks. But she also carried something else, a small, stubborn hope that maybe, somewhere in this strange new world, she could find a place where she was not hollow, a place where she could simply be Yuna. The ship landed with a gentle thump. The doors opened. Warm air rushed in, carrying the smell of salt and flowers and cooking food. Sounds of laughter and shouting and music floated in from the colony. Yuna took a deep breath, picked up her bags, and stepped into her new life. New Busan Colony was nothing like Velora Prime. On her homeworld, everything was ordered and quiet. Streets ran in perfect straight lines. Buildings rose in identical heights. People spoke in soft voices and never ran or shouted. Here, everything was different. The streets curved and twisted in unexpected ways. Buildings of all shapes and sizes stood next to each other, tall glass towers beside small wooden houses, alien architecture mixing with human designs. And the noise. Yuna had never heard so much noise in her life. Vendors called out their prices. Children ran between the crowds, laughing and screaming. Music played from open windows. Hover vehicles zoomed overhead while ground cars rumbled below. And the people, so many different kinds of people. Yuna saw humans of every color and size. She saw aliens from worlds she had only read about in books. Some had scales, some had fur, some had extra limbs. Nobody stared at her blue skin or silver hair. Here, being different was normal. For the first 3 days, Yuna stayed at a cheap shelter for new arrivals. She shared a room with 11 other beings and slept on a narrow bed that was too short for her height. But she did not complain. She was grateful for the roof over her head. On the 4th day, she started looking for work. She had few skills that were useful here. On Velora Prime, females of her status did not work. They managed households and raised children. They planned social events and maintained family connections. None of that mattered in the colonies. But she could clean. She could cook simple meals. She could care for others, so she looked for work as a domestic helper. She answered many postings. Most employers took one look at her and said no. Some thought she looked too fragile. Others did not want an alien in their homes. One elderly human woman laughed and said, "A Velorian cleaning my house. Your kind thinks you are too good for work." Yuna did not argue. She simply thanked them and moved on. After 2 weeks, her credits were running low. The shelter was free, but food was not. She had started skipping meals to save money. Her hope, that small, stubborn flame she had carried across the stars, was starting to dim. Then she found the posting. It was on a public notice board in the market district. The paper was wrinkled and faded, as if it had been there for a long time. The words were written in hurried handwriting. Single father needs help. 4 children. Live-in caretaker wanted. Flexible hours. Patience required. Fair pay. Please come to 44 Sunflower Road. 4 children. Yuna had never cared for children before. Human children, no less. She knew nothing about their needs or habits, but the posting did not ask for experience. It only asked for patience. She had plenty of that. The house at 44 Sunflower Road was in a quiet neighborhood on the edge of the colony. It was a modest 2-story building with a small garden in front. The garden was overgrown with weeds, and several toys lay scattered on the ground. A broken bicycle leaned against the fence. Yuna walked to the door and knocked. She heard chaos inside. A child was crying loudly. Someone was yelling, "That is mine, give it back." Something crashed, maybe a plate or a cup. Then footsteps hurried toward the door. The door opened and Yuna saw a human man. He was perhaps 38 or 40 years old, with tired eyes and messy black hair. He wore a stained shirt, and there was something that looked like food in his hair. Behind him, the crying grew louder. "Yes," he said, sounding exhausted. "I am here about the posting," Yuna said. "The caretaker position." The man stared at her for a moment, as if he could not believe she was real. Then his face broke into a look of desperate hope. "Please come in," he said quickly. "I am Tiho Kim, please come in." The inside of the house was messy. Toys covered the floor. Dishes were piled in the kitchen sink. Laundry sat in baskets that looked like they had been waiting for days. But despite the mess, Yuna noticed something else. There were drawings on the walls made by children. Photographs of smiling faces hung in frames. The furniture was worn but comfortable. This was a home that was loved, even if it was struggling. A small boy, maybe 5 years old, sat on the floor crying. His face was red and covered in tears and something sticky. An older boy, around 12, stood arguing with a teenage girl near the stairs. And a younger girl, perhaps 8, hid behind a large chair, watching Yuna with wide eyes. "Children, please," Tiho called out. "We have a guest, please just give me 2 minutes of quiet." The crying continued. The arguing continued. The little girl behind the chair did not move. Tiho turned to Yuna with an embarrassed smile. "I am sorry. It is not usually this bad. Actually, no, it is usually this bad. I should be honest with you." Yuna looked around at the chaos. On Velora Prime, this would have been unthinkable. Children were quiet and obedient. Homes were spotless, but she was not on Velora Prime anymore. She knelt down in front of the crying boy. His tears stopped for a moment as he looked at her with surprise. "Hello," she said softly. "What is your name?" The boy sniffled. "Junho." "Hello, Junho. My name is Yuna. Why are you crying?" "I am hungry," Junho said. "And Minyu took my toy, and I miss Mommy." The last words hit Yuna hard. She looked up at Tiho, and she saw the pain flash across his face. He turned away quickly, pretending to pick up some toys. "Their mother passed away 3 years ago," Tiho said quietly, his back to her. "An illness. I have been raising them alone since then." Yuna understood now. The messy house, the desperate posting, the exhaustion in his eyes. This man was not struggling because he did not care. He was struggling because he was trying to do everything alone. "The older one is Sara, she is 16, Tiho continued. "Then Minyu is 12. Hana is 8, she is the shy one behind the chair, and you have met Junho, he is 5. He finally turned back to face her. "I work as a repair engineer. Ships, vehicles, anything that breaks. The work has increased lately, and I cannot always be home when the children need me. I need someone who can help." "What would you need me to do?" Yuna asked. "Make sure they eat, make sure they do their schoolwork, make sure they do not kill each other." He laughed weakly at his own joke. "I am not looking for a replacement mother, I just need help, someone kind, someone patient." He paused. "Can I ask why you came to New Busan?" The question made Yuna tense. She did not want to explain her shame. She did not want to tell this stranger that she was hollow, that she had been thrown away like garbage. I needed to start over, she said simply. Tiho nodded slowly. He did not push for more details. He did not ask about her past or her family or why a Valorian female was alone in the colonies. He just nodded, as if her answer was enough. "Are you kind?" he asked. "I try to be. Do you have patience?" Yuna thought about the 7 years she had spent hopping for a child that never came. She thought about the nights she had cried alone while Velix grew colder. She thought about standing in the great hall and listening to herself being called hollow. "Yes," she said, "I have patience." Tiho looked at her for a long moment. Then he smiled, and the tiredness in his face lifted just a little. "When can you start?" And just like that, Yuna had a job. She had a place to live. She had 4 children who did not care that she was hollow because they did not even know what that word meant. Junho tugged at her sleeve. "Blue lady," he said, his tears finally dry, "are you going to stay with us?" Yuna looked down at his round face, his curious eyes, his sticky cheeks. She did not know what the future held. She did not know if she could do this job. But for the first time since leaving Velora Prime, she felt something warm in her chest. "Yes," she said, "I am going to stay." The first weeks were difficult. Yuna did not know how to cook human food. She did not understand human children. Everything was strange to her. The way they played, the way they fought, the way they expressed their feelings so loudly and freely. Sara, the eldest, was the hardest to reach. She was 16 years old with sharp eyes and a sharper tongue. She watched Yuna like a guard watching an intruder. "You are not our mother," Sora said on the 3rd day. "Do not try to act like you are." "I am not trying to be your mother," Yuna replied gently. "I am only here to help." Sora crossed her arms. "We do not need help. We were fine before you came." But they were not fine. Yuna could see that. The laundry was never done. The meals were rushed and unbalanced. The younger children stayed up too late because no one enforced bedtime. Tiho was working so hard that he barely had time to rest. The family was held together by love, but love alone was not enough to keep a house running. Yuna started with small things. She cleaned the kitchen until it sparkled. She learned to use the human washing machine and did all the laundry. She organized the toys and cleared the floors so no one would trip. Junho, the youngest, accepted her immediately. He followed her everywhere like a small shadow. He called her Blue Lady and asked her hundreds of questions. "Why is your skin blue? Why is your hair silver? Do you have a tail? Can you fly?" "No, I cannot fly," Yuna said, smiling. "That is too bad," Junho replied seriously. "Flying would be very useful." Hana, the 8-year-old, was shy but curious. She would watch Yuna from corners and doorways, never coming close but always observing. Sometimes Yuna would turn around and find Hana's big eyes staring at her. But whenever Yuna smiled at her, Hana would run away. Minyu, the 12-year-old boy, was fascinated by everything alien. He asked Yuna about Valorian history, about her planet's technology, about her people's customs. Sometimes his questions made her sad, reminding her of the home she had lost, but she answered them patiently. Cooking was her biggest challenge. Yuna found an old recipe book in the kitchen. It had belonged to Yunji, the children's mother. The pages were stained and worn, full of handwritten notes in the margins. Yuna could not read all the words, but she could follow the pictures. Her first attempt at kimchi jjigae was a disaster. She used too much spice and not enough water. The stew came out thick and burning hot. Minyu took one bite and started coughing. Sara rolled her eyes and left the table. But Junho ate every bite. "It is good," he said, his face red and sweating. "It tastes like mommy's." Tiho came home late that night. He looked exhausted as always, his clothes dirty from work. But when he saw the pot of stew on the stove, he stopped. He lifted the lid and smelled it. For a moment his eyes became very bright and Yuna thought he might cry. Yunji used to make this, he said quietly. Every week she made this for us. I tried to follow her recipe, Yuna said. I am sorry it is not very good. Tiho took a bowl and tasted it. He closed his eyes. When he opened them again, he was smiling through tears. It is not perfect, he admitted, but it tastes like home, thank you. From that night, Yuna cooked from Yunji's recipe book every day. She made mistakes often, but she kept trying. Slowly, her cooking improved, and with each meal the family began to trust her a little more. The real change happened when Sora got sick. It was a sudden fever, high and dangerous. Tiho was at work, unreachable on a repair ship somewhere in orbit. Minyu was at school. Hana was crying because she was scared. Junho was crying because Hana was crying. Yuna took control. She sent Minyu a message to pick up Hana and Junho from school and stay with the neighbors. Then she focused on Sora. For 3 days, Yuna did not leave Sora's side. She applied cold cloths to her forehead. She made her drink water even when Sora refused. She held her hand during the worst of the fever dreams. When Sora shivered, Yuna covered her with blankets. When Sora sweated, Yuna wiped her face. At night, when Sora could not sleep from the pain, Yuna sang to her. They were Velorian lullabies, songs her own mother had sung to her long ago. The words meant nothing to Sora, but the melody was soft and gentle. It helped her rest. On the 4th day, the fever broke. Sora woke up weak but clear-eyed. She looked up at Yuna, who had dark circles under her eyes and had not slept properly in days. You stayed, Sora said, her voice rough. Of course I stayed. Sora was quiet for a long moment. Then slowly, she reached out and took Yuna's hand. Thank you, she whispered. When Tiho finally returned and found his daughter recovering, he broke down completely. He sat on the floor of Sora's room and cried with relief. Yuna quietly left the room to give them privacy. But later, Tiho found her in the kitchen. You saved her, he said. I was not here and you saved her. I only did what any caretaker would do. No, Tiho shook his head. You did what family does. After that, things changed faster. Sora stopped being cold to Yuna. She started helping with dinner. She asked Yuna about Velorian music. She even laughed at Yuna's jokes sometimes. Hana finally stopped running away. One evening, Yuna found a small piece of paper slipped under her bedroom door. It was a drawing made with colored pencils. It showed 5 figures standing in front of a house: a tall man, a teenage girl, a boy, a small girl, and a tiny boy. And in the center, a figure with blue skin and silver hair. At the bottom, in careful letters, Hana had written, "Oh, you are family." Yuna held the picture and cried. Minyu got into a fight at school. Another boy had made fun of Yuna, calling her the weird blue alien. Minyu had punched him. He came home with a bruised cheek and a note from the principal. Tiho was angry at first. We do not solve problems with violence, he said. She is family, Minyu replied firmly. You do not let people insult family. Tiho's anger faded. He looked at Yuna, then back at his son. No, he agreed quietly. You do not. That night, after the children were asleep, Yuna and Tiho sat on the front porch. The stars were bright above them. The colony was quiet at this hour, peaceful. There is something I never told you, Yuna said, about why I left my homeworld. Tiho waited, not pushing. So Yuna told him everything. She told him about Velix, about the 7 cycles of trying, about being called hollow in front of the Council of Bonds, about her mother closing the door in her face, about crossing the galaxy with 2 small bags and a broken heart. When she finished, she could not look at him. She waited for the pity, or worse, the disappointment. But Tiho said something she never expected. You know what I see when I look at you, he said. I see a woman who lost everything and still had enough love in her heart to care for 4 strangers. That is not hollow. That is the opposite of hollow. Yuna finally looked at him. In his eyes she saw no pity, only warmth, only respect. On your planet, they measure women by what their bodies can produce, Tiho continued. Here, we measure people by what their hearts can give. And Yuna, your heart gives us more than you will ever know. For the first time since leaving Velora Prime, Yuna did not feel broken. She felt full. 1 year passed on New Busan Colony, and Yuna's life had changed in ways she never imagined. The Kim household was her home now. The children were her children, not by blood but by something stronger, by choice. Junho no longer called her Blue Lady. He called her Iyama Yuna, Mother Yuna. The first time he said it, Yuna froze in the middle of cooking dinner. Tears rolled down her cheeks and fell into the soup pot. "Why are you crying?" Junho asked, worried. "Did I say something wrong?" "No," Yuna smiled through her tears. "You said something very right." Soon all 4 children called her Iyama Yuna. Even Sara, who once resented her, used the name with a shy smile. It felt natural now, as if it had always been this way. And then there was Tiho. Something had changed between them too. It happened slowly, quietly, like the sun rising. Yuna noticed the way his eyes found hers across the dinner table. She felt her heart beat faster when he came home from work. She loved the sound of his laugh, the kindness in his voice, the way he looked at his children with so much love. She loved him, she knew it now, but she was afraid to say anything. This family had given her so much already. She did not want to ruin it by asking for more. Tiho seemed to feel the same. Sometimes when the children were asleep, they would sit together on the porch and talk for hours. Their hands would almost touch. Almost, but neither of them crossed that line. They were both afraid, both carrying old wounds, both protecting the fragile happiness they had built. Then the shadow returned. It happened on an ordinary day. Yuna was at the market buying vegetables for dinner. She was examining a basket of tomatoes when she felt someone watching her. She looked up. And there stood Velix. He had not changed. He was still tall and elegant, with the silver skin and cold eyes of a highborn Velorian. He wore the robes of an ambassador, now dark blue with golden trim. 2 guards stood behind him. "Yuna," his voice was smooth, controlled. "What a surprise." Yuna's hands began to shake. She put down the tomato so she would not drop it. "Velix," she said, keeping her voice steady, "what are you doing here?" "The Velorian government has expanded to the colonies. I am stationed here as ambassador." He smiled, but it was not a warm smile. It was the smile of someone who has found something amusing. "I heard there was a hollow female living here, working as a servant. I did not expect it to be you." The word hit her like a slap. Hollow. Even after all this time, it still hurt. "I am not a servant," Yuna said. "I am a caretaker." "Same thing." Velix looked at her simple clothes, her basket of vegetables. "So this is what you have become. How sad." "I am not sad," Yuna replied. "I am happier than I ever was with you." Something flickered in Velix's eyes. Surprise, maybe, or irritation. "I heard you live with a human," he said. "A widower with children. Are you hoping he will bond with you? A hollow female?" He laughed softly. "Humans are strange, but they are not that strange. He will tire of you eventually. Everyone does." Yuna wanted to respond, but her voice caught in her throat. Old fears crawled up from her chest. Old wounds reopened. She had worked so hard to heal, and now Velix was tearing everything apart with just a few words. She turned and walked away without answering. Behind her, she heard Velix laugh again. That night Yuna could not sleep. She lay in her bed, staring at the ceiling, hearing Velix's words over and over. "Hollow. Everyone tires of you eventually." Was it true? Would Tiho eventually see her the way Velix did? Would the children? Maybe she should leave. Maybe she should disappear before she became a burden, before they realized what she really was. The next day Tiho came home early. His face was serious. "Someone visited me at work today," he said. "A Velorian ambassador." Yuna's blood turned cold. He told me interesting things, Tiho continued. He told me that you cannot have children, that you are considered defective on your homeworld, that I am wasting my time with you. Yuna lowered her eyes. He is right, I should have told you sooner. I am sorry I. Let me finish, Tiho said. His voice was firm but not angry. He told me all of that, and then he asked me if I still wanted you in my home. Yuna waited, her heart pounding. Do you know what I said to him? Tiho asked. She shook her head. I said I have 4 children. They are hers now too. I do not need her to give me anything. She already gives us everything. Yuna looked up. Tiho was smiling. Then I asked him to leave my workplace, he added. Actually, I used stronger words than that. My coworkers were impressed. You are not disappointed, Yuna whispered. Disappointed? Tiho stepped closer and took her hands in his. Yuna, I do not love you because of what you can or cannot do. I love you because of who you are. Your body does not define your worth. Your heart does. He said it. He said he loved her. Yuna's eyes filled with tears. But before she could respond, a voice came from the stairs. Are you going to leave? They turned. Sora stood on the steps, her arms crossed. Behind her, Minyu, Hana, and Junho were watching with worried faces. We heard about the alien man who came to the market, Sora said. Junho told us you seemed scared. Are you going to run away? Yuna looked at the 4 children, her children. They were watching her with fear in their eyes, not fear of her but fear of losing her. I thought about it, Yuna admitted. I thought maybe I should leave before I become a burden to you. That is stupid, Sora said bluntly. If you leave, you break this family. Do you not understand that? We chose you, Minyu added. You are our Iyama now. Hana ran forward and wrapped her arms around Yuna's waist. Do not go, please do not go. Junho started crying. Blue Lady cannot leave. Blue Lady promised to stay. Yuna knelt down and pulled all the children close. Even Sora joined the embrace after a moment. They held each other tight, a tangle of arms and tears and love. I am not leaving, Yuna said, her voice thick with emotion. I am sorry for scaring you. I was afraid, but I am not leaving. I will never leave you. She looked up at Tiho over the children's heads. He was watching them with tears in his own eyes. I love you too, she said to him. That night the family ate dinner together. They laughed and talked about their days. Junho told a long, confusing story about a bug he found at school. Minyu complained about his math homework. Sora helped Hana practice reading aloud. It was ordinary, it was beautiful. And somewhere in the colony, an ambassador sat alone in his expensive quarters, wondering how a hollow female could look so happy. It made no sense to him. According to everything he knew, she should be miserable. But Velix had never understood humans, and he had never really understood love. Some things could not be measured by bloodlines or bodies. Some things could only be measured by the heart. And Yuna's heart was full. 6 months passed since Velix's arrival on New Busan. He had tried once more to speak with Yuna, but she refused to see him. He had tried to create problems through official channels, questioning whether a Velorian should live with humans. But the colony authorities did not care about Velorian traditions. They only cared that Yuna was a legal resident who paid her taxes and caused no trouble. Eventually, Velix was transferred to another station. He left New Busan without saying goodbye. Yuna did not notice he was gone until someone mentioned it at the market. Good, she said simply, and continued choosing vegetables. The garden in front of the Kim house had changed. When Yuna first arrived, it was overgrown with weeds. Now it bloomed with flowers and vegetables. She had learned that Yoonji, the children's mother, had planted this garden years ago. After she died, no one had the time or heart to care for it. Yuna had brought it back to life, plant by plant. She found it peaceful to work in the soil, to feel things grow under her hands. The children helped sometimes. Junho liked to dig holes. Hana liked to water the flowers. Even Sora would come out on warm evenings and sit in the garden, reading or just watching the sunset. It was in this garden that Tiho proposed. He came home early one evening, looking nervous. The children were unusually well-behaved, which should have told Yuna something was happening. They kept glancing at each other and smiling secret smiles. "Come outside," Tiho said, taking her hand. "I want to show you something in the garden." Yuna followed him, confused. The sun was setting, turning the sky orange and pink. The flowers in the garden swayed gently in the breeze. And there, standing in a row along the garden path, were the 4 children. Each of them held a single flower. "What is happening?" Yuna asked, her heart beginning to race. Tiho led her to the center of the garden and turned to face her. He was shaking a little, she noticed. This strong, steady man who had raised 4 children alone was nervous. "Yuna," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "I have loved twice in my life. The first time was Yunji. She was wonderful and I will always carry her in my heart. When she died, I thought that part of me died too. I thought I would never love again." He paused, taking a breath. "Then you came. You walked into our chaos with your 2 small bags and your sad eyes, and you changed everything. You taught us to hope again. You taught us to laugh again. You healed wounds I did not even know we had." Tears were already rolling down Yuna's cheeks. "My heart did not close when Yunji left," Tiho continued. "It grew, and you filled the space that grew. You filled it with kindness and patience and love. You filled it with songs and stories and terrible first attempts at cooking." The children laughed softly. Yuna laughed too, through her tears. "I'm not asking you to replace anyone," Tiho said. "I am asking you to be who you already are, part of this family, part of my heart." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. Inside was a ring, simple and beautiful. "Yuna, will you marry me? Will you stay with us not as a caretaker but as family, as my wife?" For a moment Yuna could not speak. She looked at the ring, at Tiho's hopeful face, at the 4 children watching with excited eyes. She thought about Velura Prime, about the great hall where she had been called Hollow, about the door her mother had closed in her face, about the cargo freighter that had carried her across the stars with nothing but 2 bags and a broken heart. She had come so far, she had lost so much. And yet, standing here in this garden surrounded by people who loved her, she realized she had gained even more. "Yes," she whispered, then louder, laughing and crying at the same time. "Yes, I will marry you." The children cheered. They ran forward, all 4 of them, and wrapped themselves around Yuna and Tiho. It was a messy, joyful embrace full of laughter and happy tears. Junho was jumping up and down. Hana was hugging Yuna's legs so tight she could not move. Minyu was trying to look cool but failing completely. And Sora was crying openly, not even trying to hide it. "Welcome to the family," Sora said, grinning through her tears. "Officially, I mean." The wedding was held 1 month later in the garden. It was small and simple, just how they wanted it. Neighbors came. Friends from Tiho's work came. Even a few aliens Yuna had met in the colony came, curious to see a Velorian wedding. Yuna wore a hanbok, the traditional Korean dress that Yunji had once worn on special occasions. Sora had helped her modify it, adding Velorian patterns to the fabric, swirling silver lines that sparkled in the sunlight. It was a blend of 2 cultures, 2 histories made new. Tiho wore a simple dark suit. He could not stop smiling. The ceremony was short and sweet. There were no cold councils or formal declarations, just 2 people speaking their promises to each other, surrounded by the people they loved. "I promise to stay," Yuna said, holding Tiho's hands. "Through chaos and quiet, through good days and hard days. I promise to love your children as my own because they already are. I promise to keep learning, keep growing, keep trying. I promise to never run away again." "I promise to see you," Tiho said. "Not what you can or cannot do, not what your planet says you are. I promise to see you, your kindness, your strength, your beautiful heart. I promise to remind you that you are enough every single day." They kissed and everyone cheered. The celebration lasted long into the night. There was food and music and dancing. Junho fell asleep on a pile of cushions. Hana showed everyone her latest drawings. Minyu taught some aliens how to play a human card game. Sora caught the flower bouquet and turned bright red when everyone teased her about it. Later, when the guests had gone home and the children were in bed, Yuna stood alone in the garden. She looked up at the stars, thinking about how far she had traveled, how much she had lost, how much she had found. A message arrived from Velora Prime the next day. The Council of Bonds had heard about her marriage. They were scandalized. A hollow female, bonded to an alien, mothering children not of her blood, it was against everything their society believed. They sent a formal denouncement. In cold, official language, they declared that Yuna was no longer recognized as Velorian. Her name was struck from their records. She was, in their eyes, nothing. Yuna read the message carefully, then she set it aside. "What did it say?" Tiho asked, walking into the kitchen. "They have disowned me," Yuna said. "I'm no longer Velorian according to their laws." Tiho frowned. "Are you okay?" Yuna thought about it. On Velora Prime, this would have been the ultimate shame, the final punishment. But here, in this kitchen, with the sounds of her children waking up upstairs, it meant nothing. "They measure worth in what the body can produce," she said softly. "Humans measure worth in what the heart can hold." She smiled at Tiho. "And my heart holds 5 of you now. That is not barren, that is full." Tiho crossed the room and held her. They stood like that for a long moment, just holding each other. Then Junho ran into the kitchen, hair messy and eyes sleepy. "Iyama, I am hungry." Sora followed, yawning. "Is there coffee?" Minyu shuffled in next, asking about his missing socks. Hana came last, carrying a drawing she had made that morning. "Look, Iyama, I drew us again." Yuna looked at the picture. 5 figures standing in front of a house, surrounded by flowers. A family. She had crossed the stars believing she had nothing to offer. Her own people had called her hollow, empty, worthless. But they had been wrong. She was not hollow. She had never been hollow. Her heart was the fullest it had ever been. And somewhere, far across the galaxy, on a cold and perfect planet, an alien named Velix sat in his beautiful home, surrounded by status and wealth and bloodlines that mattered. He had everything his society said he should want. But late at night, when no one was watching, he wondered about a woman with sad eyes who had once loved him. He wondered where she was now. He wondered if she was happy. He would never know the answer. But the answer was yes. Yes, she was happy. Finally, completely, wonderfully happy.